Question: what does Russia expect from the Russia-ASEAN meeting next week? Maria Zakharova: I spoke about this at the beginning of the briefing. During the upcoming ASEAN events, Russia intends to present its assessments of the regional situation, including the escalation of the conflict potential in the Asia-Pacific region due to the course towards the militarization of the region pursued by the West, NATO power potential's influence, and expansion of the bloc mechanism network. Russia will continue to promote the creation of a just and equal world order model, where ASEAN will be a natural partner of the SCO and the EAEU. All the three organizations are operating in the same coordinate system of positive cooperation while promoting mutual ties in various spheres. This year, we mark the 20th anniversary of Russia joining the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in Southeast Asia, Bali Treaty of 1976. In this regard, it is planned to reaffirm the principles enshrined in it for ensuring peace and stability in the region in Vientiane. During the Russian ASEAN ministerial meeting, we hope to have a substantive dialogue on the entire range of issues of interaction with the association in the field of politics and security, as well as on trade, economic and socio-cultural tracks. We expect to discuss the progress of implementation of the Comprehensive Action Plan for the implementation of the Russia-ASEAN Strategic Partnership for 2021-2025 and launch the development of a new similar document for the medium term. We plan to place the main emphasis on the development of high-tech and knowledge-intensive sectors, smart cities, cooperation in the areas of digitalization and energy, among other things. The agenda of the ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting will be focused on preparing for the summit in Vientiane in October, as well as on reviewing the roadmap of the association's activities for 2024 to 2028 that was adopted in 2023. We will focus on the tasks of stepping up work on projects integrated into the ASEAN vision at Russia's proposal to create a regional anti-epidemic response mechanism, strengthen tourism cooperation, and establish connections between volunteer organizations in the Asia-Pacific region. At the upcoming ARF session, we expect to approve the forum program for next year, adopt a thematic statement on ferry safety and a number of work plans, including on emergency response. We will continue to promote practical initiatives in the field of ensuring international information security with the support of ASEAN, which is a priority of Russia on this platform. In general, we expect the forum to have constructive and productive work based on the traditional principles of ASEAN, which we deeply respect and share. Questions: U.S. Vice Presidential Candidate J.D. Vance said, "If you are going to punch the Iranians, you punch them hard." He added that Israel should partner Sunni states against Iran. How can you comment on this? Maria Zakharova: we must distinguish between election campaigning and statements by incumbent officials. In this case, it is an election campaign statement. We cannot now say with certainty whether it will remain as an attempt to aggressively attract attention in order to raise ratings, or whether it is really a substantive program that will be implemented if they win the elections. We have seen many times how political statements, including in the US, do not subsequently translate into practical policy. This is a common occurrence. It is hard to say whether it is aggressive election rhetoric or a concrete program. In any case, whether we are talking about election pledges and slogans or about a proposed program that will be implemented, statements of this kind are certainly not conducive to stabilizing the situation in the Middle East, where the situation has already reached a breaking point. This is a tragedy not only on a global scale, but also a historic one. We are forced to qualify what is happening in this way because of the number of victims and the lack of prospects for normalizing the situation. When we speak of a tragedy on a historic scale, it is necessary to be aware of its impact on the future. In this region, a monstrous landmine is now being laid under the foundation of people's lives for generations to come. The fact that this is coming from the people who may occupy high positions, at least they see themselves there, aggravates the situation even more. Such rhetoric from anyone, especially someone who calls himself a politician, can only qualify as irresponsible. We hear such things not only with regard to Iran. We have already spoken today about similar aggressive statements that this person made about China. I am not even talking about Russia. We hear such things every day. It is unacceptable that one country endlessly gives its political figures the right to use aggressive, hateful rhetoric against independent states and peoples. Could it be that American politicians, whether Republicans or Democrats, are ignorant of history? They are not aware that they are talking not just about independent sovereign countries but about countries' civilizations with centuries-long history and rich culture. These countries and nations have given today's world a huge number of scientific achievements, which are used both by the countries of the West and the global South by all humankind. Who gave any politician the right to use such a tone? Such rhetoric is perilous. Many will say that these are just words. But they aren't. Let us recall the cynical assassination of the commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, General K. Soleimani, by the U.S. military. This was a multi-level crime and assassination by one state of a politician and statesman of another state on the territory of a third country. Mr. Soleimani was on an official visit to Iraq at the time. He enjoyed, among other things, appropriate immunity as far as the legal side of the matter is concerned. We pay tribute to Tehran for the restraint it demonstrates against the backdrop of Washington's long-standing defiant and aggressive behavior. Question: Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov mentioned China's initiative to settle the conflict in Ukraine at a news conference following his visit to the U.S. as part of Russia's presidency of the UN Security Council. This initiative suggests considering the root cause. He referred to 2014, when the ban on the Russian language was imposed and oppression on ethnic grounds began, among other consequences, after the coup d'état. We agree with this formulation, but we propose to look for the root cause in 1991. It was after that coup d'état that the bans on the Russian language, conflicts in the country and chaos in general began in the world. Maria Zakharova: wasn't it there before? Question: before, everything was more stable. At least, in the Soviet Union it was quiet. Maria Zakharova: before you continue asking your question on these grounds, I would like to specify something. Did 1941 happen when there was the Soviet Union? Does this mean your point has no foundation? Question: it has. After 1945, the world order we live in today was formed. In 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis broke out. This was the basis the United States and the Soviet Union agreed on. After this, according to Russian President Vladimir Putin, a geopolitical catastrophe occurred in 1991. Any disaster, even accidental, is investigated. For some reason, the biggest tragedy of the 20th century went unnoticed. This disrupted the world order. It might be worth investigating the events that took place back then. More than 500,000 Russian citizens have already signed up for the class action lawsuit. Can the Russian Foreign Ministry act as a plaintiff in the case on the 1991 events Indiana court? Maria Zakharova: I think you only ask this question to provoke. On the one hand, you say that this is the biggest tragedy, which I agree with, but on the other it looks like you are trying to say that we do not reflect on it. I have a feeling there is a provocation in your question. You are constantly asking it in one form or another. Why? I repeat, I agree that dividing a nation is truly a great tragedy. If you, as a non-governmental association, a civil force, have a powerful motivation, then you can file a claim on your own, especially since, according to you, thousands of citizens have already signed up for it. I see no obstacles to accomplishing your plans. Our work is defined by doctrinal documents, such as the Russian foreign policy concept. As a prominent representative of civil society, you have the opportunity and right to implement this civil initiative. In this sense, our foreign policy activities, including protecting history and upholding international law, will help. Look at the number of materials we provide every day and steps we are taking to ensure that the collective principles formed in the post-war period, based on international law, are not buried by the Anglo-Saxons now. This is our job. We do it. Have you addressed these questions to other departments? Question: yes. We filed this application to the Supreme Court and courts in all regions, at various instances. They do not accept this claim. The judicial system refuses to execute its functions. In all other matters you are welcome, but in this case they first said that they would not investigate it because they have no rights. However, after the 2020, Russia is the successor of the Soviet Union, so now it has the right to investigate this event. But they still refuse to accept it. Probably, the American influence is still too powerful there. Maria Zakharova, please allow me to remind you that judicial power is independent. Posing the same question to our ministry regularly can be regarded as provocation. I would like to once again refer to the Foreign Ministry's functions, missions, and tasks. This is what we do. You cannot reproach Russian diplomacy for not working to defend the rights of our compatriots who fell victims of this tragedy and new blows due to the fact that they were in many ways considered persons without any rights, for example, in the Baltic states. The Foreign Ministry, Foreign Service, and our diplomats were among the first to not just record this problem but to start working on it, focusing on our compatriots from the point of view of international law, protecting their rights on international platforms, and providing them with daily assistance. I am not even talking about the information sphere. This is just one of the main areas. Our ministry has become one of the few outposts for upholding international law. Please recall when the Foreign Ministry began saying that the rule-based world order, this expression came up in the vocabulary of the Western countries, is not just an attempt to react but to destroy international law. This has not happened just now, not even 2 or 3 years ago. There is a reason we have been talking about this for many years. We are doing everything to preserve international law. How many attacks have prominent Western politicians undertaken against the United Nations? They tried very hard to destroy the UN or place it at their service. We defend the UN in order to preserve all the best that was put into it. We share your assessment of how tragic and disastrous the events of that period were. We have to work with their consequences. We are doing everything to ensure that the West's goals and objectives are not implemented, not just the goal to inflict a strategic defeat on us, but the overall goal to remake the world on the basis of their hegemony and dominance. Let everyone do their job. We are always happy to hear constructive criticism or suggestions that will align with our tasks.